All right, hi there, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills. Adam Benini, WGRZ TV, Sal Mayorana, and with us once again, Hall of Famer Vic Carucci, who I have the pleasure, Sal, of working with at Channel 2 these days on Sports Talk Live, and I know you guys have known each other longer than Vic and I have. We have reason to celebrate. It was what was it? A week ago Tuesday,
right?
Induction officially into the Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame. Vic, again, congratulations.
Thanks so much, Adam and Sal. Obviously, long road this career has been, and you two have been prominent parts of it with me along the way. And the beauty of that night, which it's still resonating with all our family and friends, is the beauty of sharing it and sharing it with you guys. And obviously, it's been months since they told me back in April, but spending time with you guys and a lot of the laughs and memories of what we've all experienced covering this team, really, that's what this is about, man. It's the memories. Yeah.
Yeah. I was at when they had the announcement at Dave & Buster's, right?
Yep.
Whatever that was several months ago. And
June.
Then we went downtown. Yeah, in June, we went downtown to your daughter's restaurant down there, which was not restaurant. Is that a restaurant, Vic? She operates.
It's classified as such. It's called Meat and Eat Charcuterie. It's a wine bar,
Right.
and yes, you can get food there. And one of the reasons why she doesn't like Dad helping her out is I eat the product. I eat too much.
It was awesome, though. We had a great night that night with a bunch of Vic's friends and family, and the food was awesome. So I got to celebrate with them that night. I guess you got to do it the actual induction night, Adam. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. I had the honor of actually standing on stage with Vic and presenting him his Hall of Fame. Vic, if you want to hold it up to the camera, I don't know if you have it on or not.
I know. Hang it in 1 second. It's right here.
Podcast gold here, Adam.
Right. Yeah.
That's it.
Or at least YouTube gold. There it is. Look at that.
Very nice. Yes, I actually had it off because I was before we get together. I was working out, took a shower. I removed the ring before that, and usually at night because I usually injure myself with it. It's pretty big.
Yeah, nice.
Very good. Well deserved.
Thank you.
All right, well deserved. Quick word from the sponsor, then we'll get into it here. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. The largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL, college hoops, UFC, and MMA as well. Head to the website today. Bet Online. The game starts here. All right, gentlemen. Here they are at 9-2 at the bye week, exceeding all of our expectations, I think, and I know we're not alone in that department. I'll open it up just sort of generally. I mean, I was in Syracuse at the time covering the Super Bowl era teams. Both of you were entrenched in your roles with the Buffalo News and Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, respectively, back during those years. And it's been a hell of a run under Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and with Josh Allen at quarterback. I realize there are different eras at play here and different factors that led to the construction of these teams. But I'm seeing a lot of intangibles this year, things that we haven't seen from McDermott and Allen led teams before that make this very interesting. I guess, they're in the conversation now as Super Bowl contenders. How high on that list do each of you have them based on the 11-game sample we've seen now?
Yeah, I'm putting them really high. Certainly at the top of the AFC, in my opinion. The Kansas City game isn't the only reason I felt that way. I was feeling that way prior to that game, just in terms of the way the teams matched up, and I had expected the Bills to come out of that game with a win. I know I had a lot of company with that, but even with the measuring stick that the Baltimore Ravens provided, which was overwhelmingly negative from the Bills' standpoint and how they played them, I think they're a different team now than they were then. I like the point you just made about what you've seen from Sean McDermott, from Josh Allen, and the evolution of this team, and the comparison you made to those four Super Bowl teams. It's a reasonable one, with the big caveat that is loaded with Hall of Famers, and I don't know how many, if any, we'll see off this particular team. That's a ways down the road. But what I like, where the comparisons are fair, competent leadership, really good coaching that has played a huge role in the construction of a roster. And this is the Brandon Beane / McDermott approach that is really emphasized outstanding depth, the types of individuals that they brought in, team first type players. I mean, yes, the Bills teams of those 90s Super Bowl teams had a lot of huge egos, had a lot of boisterous personalities, which this team does not, but different era. But I would say the core of that team back in the day when you could keep quality special teams players, when the salary cap wasn't squeezing people out. I get the feeling, Sal, this roster has that kind of component to it, perhaps more than anything else that is giving it, that is responsible for a lot of the success.
Yeah, I think what the point that you made, Vic, about, back when those teams were going to Super Bowls, there was no salary cap, there was no free agency. That came, I think, in the last year. I think it was 93 when that all started. Mm-hmm. So those teams that Polian and Marv built, starting in, really like 87, 86, you could say, when they got Kelly. When they started building that team, the core of that team stayed together for a long time. And they were able to build, and it just got to a point where they were the best team in the AFC. That's why this team and the job that Beane and McDermott have done, I think in some ways, again, minus the Hall of Fame players that those old teams had, I think in some ways it's even more impressive because of what they've had to negotiate with the salary cap and free agency. Just this year, they had to lop off Stephon Diggs, for instance, and several other players to get in line with the cap. And we all thought, I think we're all in agreement here, that they were going to have a step back season because they lost so much talent and they were going to have to kind of rebuild on the fly. Well, they've rebuilt on the fly, and they've done it, I think, much better than any of us could have anticipated. And that's why I'm so impressed by this group. They've been able to do this since really 2019. They've had to, they've built it up, but they've had to tweak it all the way through these last 5 or 6 years. And here they are standing 9-2. And like Vic said, I think they could be the best team in the AFC. I think Baltimore's there. Kansas City's certainly there. But I think the Bills are right in that mix.
One of the things that, as both of you kind of pointed out, the way it manifests itself to me is how they've dealt with and adjusted to various adversity, on the injury front, all the transitioning the roster and all those questions with young players, right? Obviously, they had a need in the passing game and went out and dealt for Amari Cooper. So that speaks to the leadership and the front office and all those things. And when he's been in there, we've seen, maybe not statistically in terms of his numbers, but the impact he can have on the dynamic of the offense and the passing game. Being without Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid in this last game against Kansas City, finding ways in the depth, the way they've tweaked it, Sal, right? And the way those players who are in there have responded with various injuries, and you could list a number of them and how they've adjusted, and to still find ways within games and be able to get the results that they have with various formulas, if you will. That's the difference that I see, and sort of the when I refer to intangible, that's kind of the biggest one, as opposed to the previous model, say offensively, where you knew they were trying to get the ball to Stephon Diggs, and when that didn't go well, there was tension that rose and all that sort of thing. There's a lot more flexibility now, and then you have a quarterback who has matured and refined through that whole process and is able to make the most of that situation on the offensive side of the ball, not to mention what we've seen defensively. The way that's all come together and fit together at this point during the bye week is what makes me think there's something different about this group.
Well, there's a lot different for sure, but let's not forget the previous model worked. It worked well. They were a Super Bowl contender. They were on the precipice of getting there, winning it all. We know what prevented it. We know the stumbling blocks that came along, but they were a humming machine offensively with the previous model. Yeah, so it's a different model. Remember, it's not about so much how you get there, it's the destination. We may appreciate this more without a sense of drama, and I say we, I don't even, honestly, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. fun story to cover either way. And I'm all about what's the best story, not necessarily how the story evolves. I think it is probably better for Josh. That's the universal thought, that he doesn't have the pressure of forcing the ball to one guy, et cetera, et cetera. What's impressive is how, and it didn't happen immediately. We had questions about this receiving core. I know I did. Serious questions like, are they going to be able to actually form the offense that's going to be strong enough to give them a chance to compete? That's come around, and that was coming around prior to Amari Cooper's arrival. But the fact that they got Cooper tells you they recognized there wasn't enough there. And Cooper has made, obviously, in fits and starts or spurts, an impact. And I think if he's able to stay healthy and be part of it, yes. And the Keon Coleman return to health, whenever that is, and his contribution should make a difference. Dalton Kincaid, let's see what happens there. There are still some lingering questions, but by and large, they have made this work. And to your point about injuries, how they've overcome that, I think that's been, especially on defense, the back end, the safety position, what we've seen on the defensive line. I mean, a lot of things have happened. That is, yes, players stepping up, but coaching. And my gosh, how good has Bobby Babich been as a first-time defensive coordinator?
I was going to go right there, Vic. You set me up like you're like a volleyball setter there, because I'm going to spike it home.
Yeah.
A lot of Bills fans, for whatever reason, just always think that the Bills aren't well coached, right? They always shit on McDermott and Brady's a lousy play caller and all this stuff. It's always coaching if the Bills lose. It's never the players, always the coaches. I'm here to tell you, this coaching staff, I think, is outstanding. I think they've got a lot of really good coaches in that building, and that's why they're able to overcome the injuries that they've overcome. They have guys in place. It's a system, and everybody knows the role. And if one guy goes down, there is not too often a drop-off in the guy who's going to replace them. Look, Keon Coleman went down. Curtis Samuel stepped up. Curtis Samuel's been in the league for 8 years. The guy knows how to play. It didn't go well early, but he knows how to play in the NFL, so that's right there. Dawson Knox automatically stepped in easily for Dalton Kincaid last week. Hell, even Ryan Vandemark, who's been in the building for 2.5 years, was able to go in and take over for Spencer Brown, and he did not embarrass himself at all in that game. In fact, he had a key block on Allen's game-winning touchdown. So I think the coaching on this team is outstanding. Aaron Cromer, in particular, on that offensive line. I think the coordinators are solid. That's part of the reason why this team is 9-2. It's not all Josh Allen. It's not all the players. It's the coaches putting them in positions and having all 53 guys on that roster ready to go when their number's called.
Yeah, and it Monday night on Sports Talk Live in Buffalo, Vic, myself, John Scott on the show, I made the point that I think Sean should be in the conversation for Coach of the Year for the reasons you just outlined. And Vic, I know you're a voter, so we're not going to put you on the spot here. I understand the position you're in with that. But look, McDermott, possible Coach of the Year, Josh Allen leading in the MVP race. I mean, it's not all about Josh, but so much of it revolves around him. And a big part of this, and Sal and I have talked about this, the term we've used is this is the most refined version and mature version of Josh Allen that we have seen. Would you agree with that, Vic?
I would agree with that. That's on him too. I'm with Sal 100% that coaching doesn't get enough credit and always is the blame. It's just a thing. It's like a favorite hobby of Bills fans. Yes, the coaches are always bad, and it's never the players. But in this case, I think coaching has influence. Joe Brady has done his part to kind of tailor what they do with their playbook game plan to a Josh Allen that is not asked constantly to do so much with his arm, even though that happens. I would like to still see more balance and more commitment to run because I think they can do it. And I think this offensive line has shown it. But the guy who generally has been a little less reckless, maybe a lot less reckless. We've seen those occasional scratch your head, what is he doing throws, but I think we can see that from every quarterback, even the best of the best, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. But yeah, there's a maturing, and sometimes it takes people a little bit longer. It's taken him this much time to kind of get there. But it is also about what is around him and what is expected of him. But we're saying all this, and yet what's going to be the most defining play of the season? Josh Allen taking the ball down and doing that incredible 26-yard run that is going to stand as one of the all-time Bills plays.
They've got a absolute superstar in their midst, right? I mean, he is the key to everything, and he has delivered. Yes, not in the playoffs yet, but they are nowhere. I mean, they're a decent team. They're nowhere without Josh Allen. The version of Josh Allen that we've seen for the last several years, for sure. And you're right. That was one of the plays of the year, because that was all him, Vic. That was supposed to be a mesh play to get 2 yards to whoever came free, and he just recognized immediately nothing was left, nothing was right. This is on my hands, and he just made. There were 6 Chiefs who had a chance to get him on that play. He brushed them off like flies all the way to the end zone.
Willpower. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
I mean, we love Kelly. You and I both love Kelly. But I mean, there's just no comparison to the physical ability.
No, but quickly, Sal, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of that Miami game at Miami, Jim taking it upon himself on the keeper, right? And then, of course, the worst part of the play for Jim, he gets the touchdown, they win the game, they beat the Dolphins, and he powers his way into the end zone. But he does remember not well that his entire team piled on him, and he was worried he was going to be smothered, in the heat of Miami's stadium.
And of course, the difference there was it was a 2-yard run.
Yeah, 2 yards, not 26.
It wasn't a 26-yard run where he ski slobbing through the defense, right?
All right, so as we begin to put a wrap on this bye week edition, let's just kind of look ahead down the stretch here, because I mean it's great 9-2, but with Josh Allen would be the first to tell you it's a 9th win. And, the ultimate goal, and really the tests, some big ones are still to come. Not to mention you've got, over the final 6 games, San Francisco 49ers on the backside of the bye. And obviously that Detroit game looms large, as well as a kind of a litmus test or whatever. Maybe the 2 best teams in football, you could argue, going at it in that game. The idea, though, that you're likely to get a Matt Milano back, in addition to everyone else coming back, the timing of this bye, getting healthy, that sort of a thing. I mean, there's reason to be optimistic when you consider all those factors. A healthy Bills roster, Von Miller benefiting from that suspension in a physical standpoint and showing legitimate effectiveness at 35 years old. All of those factors coming together, there's reason for optimism down the stretch, I think.
No question. Things you want to see on the checklist. You want to see the return of Matt Milano not become any sort of disruption. And what I mean by that is just there's chemistry that's been built. Terrell Bernard and Williams and that crew. I mean, they've done a nice job. Dorian Williams. That crew has really excelled. Even Balin Spector, when he's had to step in there, again, Milano's the all-pro. We know I'm not by any means comparing his talent to theirs, but he's been out of this. And to fit your way back in is a different process. And, of course, seeing how his health responds. Want to see Ed Oliver be more consistent. He had his best game of the season against the Chiefs. He's disappeared in a lot of others. Want to see the offensive line and the commitment to the run game, first of all, go back to that. But 2, let's see fewer of the games we've seen up to this point where it was a penalty fest. And a lot of those guys, Spencer Brown, Dawkins, others, a lot of those pre-snap penalties, the false starts, we can't ignore those. They've cleaned up some, but got to through this stretch. Those are killers. And then in terms of the receiving core, it's just a matter of, staying healthy, but consistent contribution of the tight ends. Dawson Knox did step in well, and that was important, but they've got to see much more of that from him. And it is, can Dalton Kincaid stay healthy? Can Keon Coleman stay healthy? Not the biggest frame on a guy playing in this very tough sport. And then the back end, it's Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin. Did we expect that duo to not leave us with any more questions? Because by now it was like, are they going to bring back Micah Hyde? All of a sudden that conversation is off the table. Why? Because those two guys are actually holding up well. Do they continue to do so down the stretch?
Now, I think one of the big keys too, and this is the same for every team in the league, but health. And this bye, they'll tell you the bye comes at the right time every year. But there's no denying the bye came at an absolutely perfect time for the Bills this year, because they are going to go into that 49ers game, knock on wood here, as healthy as any team could possibly be. They're probably going to get back Kincaid, right? Milano will be back in there playing, I would guess, on third downs early, Vic, in his tenure. They'll work him back in gradually, and then maybe by Detroit, get him in there full time. But they're going to get all these guys back from injury, and they're going to go into that game as healthy as any team could be. And we all know what happened last year. They were not healthy when they got to January, especially on defense, and it cost them dearly. They probably win the Chiefs game if they've got Terrell Bernard and Christian Benford didn't play in that game. They've got to get there healthy. That, I think, is a key for every team, but in particular this Bills team.
All right, so we'll have a much greater sense of that when they get back from the bye week. Again, next up, San Francisco 49ers a week from Sunday night. That is Sunday Night Football on Channel 2 and NBC. We thank you very much for joining us for this bye week edition. Sal Majorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Famer, Vic Carucci. Thanks for your time today, man. We appreciate it.
That's a mouthful, man. Do I have to call you that every time I talk to you now?
Yes,
I got to spit those 20 syllables out every time I talk to you?
You do. That's a requirement. The ring.
The ring says it all. We appreciate your time, Vic. I'm Adam Benini, WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live. Thank you for being with us on this bye-week edition of Believe in Bills.